All right,
live.
hello.
We're getting there. Hello. People are, I'm sure, gonna
Takes a second.
jump in out there in the internet world. Welcome, everyone. Welcome.
Hello. The people are coming. Hello, thank you
Thank you.
guys for tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
We are here again on Friday night at 1001 Wilshire with Happening Studios. We are Artory DTLA. My name is Julia Francis, and this is
Alex Feliciano, and we are here again for another amazing episode with an amazing artist and educator that is a teacher, actually, or was a teacher of Julia Francis back in the day.
Yes.
Not even back in the day.
Back in yesterday.
Yeah.
Back in yesterday. But yeah, before we get into that, I don't know if anyone saw that yesterday we had our first virtual art show, Play and Bounty. Just wanted to kind of circle back and just let everyone know that's going to be a show that's being shown at our gallery space, Francis Gallery, for a full month. So until March 18th, if you're interested in any of the artwork, please get in touch with us. DM us at Artory DTLA, and we would be happy to have you come by and see some wonderful artwork.
If you haven't seen already, there's a video posted about it. But there's a small highlight reel it's titled Play and Bounty. You click on that, and you can see all the works there for the next month. And then you can DM those to us. So yeah, we
Perfect.
can continue on with that. Thank you. Thank you guys if you tuned into our first show last night. Thank you so much for watching.
It doesn't work without you guys. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. So our guest today is Joe Biel. He was my former teacher at Cal State Fullerton. We're here with him to learn a little bit more about the kind of inside workings of the art education system, because we all have questions. All artists out there have a little bit of, little bit of an insight on that. He's also, of course, an artist himself, and he does phenomenal work. It's like true detail. You have to have like real patience for.
As opposed to untrue detail.
Untrue detail, yeah, of course, opposed to that.
There's plenty of them in there too.
Yes. He's also got his own podcast as well. It's called Trees Podcast. I would say it's one of the more interesting things to watch on Instagram right now.
Oh, seriously?
Of course, it's going to transform, I think, into something bigger. He'd mentioned, but right now you can catch a little story time on Sunday nights.
The first one was awesome.
Thank
we had no clue what we were jumping into, then as soon as it came on, we were just like, oh, this is.
Yeah, that's George Saunders, who's. I mean, I picked that story because it's very relatable, but very surreal, and but also strangely positive.
Oh,
ending,
for sure.
Which
So what? It seemed like something that you'd kind of based off. Something that you'd already done, like something that had to do with the school that you went to, or
that particular story, you mean?
No. The podcast itself. What is the concept behind the podcast?
So it's kind of a big question, but it's good. Well, since I've been kind of in recovery from anxiety and depression, I felt that I wanted to do something as an artist that was beyond my private studio practice. Not that that's bad if that's all you do.
Yeah,
I think that's an amazing thing. But for some reason, I've always been interested in social practice. Even in grad school, I was really interested in Joseph Beuys and a lot of the artists from the 70s who were really starting that. But I never could quite figure out how to do it. And I did some performance work, but somehow it always felt like it was in the white cube. Not that there's anything wrong with the white cube, but I really wanted to access something beyond that. In addition. So I started thinking about, the truth is that I was watching massive amounts of YouTube when I was depressed. And I don't think it was a great habit, but the silver lining is that I discovered some really beautiful channels, people whose content I would consider to be social practice. Not that they even think about it as art, but I did. And it really kind of got me through. It's really one of the things that got me through. Seriously, it was amazing, and so I sort of remembered that after the fact. So the bad habit part was gone, but I thought, wow, I really like people, and one of the things about being a studio artist it's not that I don't like it, but I can't really access that connectivity with humans. And I'm somebody who needs that. Some people need more isolation or solitude, whatever you want to call it. But I'm somebody, you need to know yourself as an artist to sort of figure. So anyway, I thought, well, actually, I think that YouTube and social media is actually like the cutting edge avant-garde art form or art platform, or not the one, but it's one.
For sure.
That's yes. And I had, my students are going to laugh their asses off at me saying this because I was like the biggest fucking curmudgeon ever with this stuff in the past. So I really have shifted, and I think it's okay to be, I think it's great to shift. I don't mind. I laugh at myself about that. But so I thought, when I was a grad student, I had always admired Black Mountain College. It's something, particularly if you study.
That's what I was thinking about. I was like, maybe you went to Black Mountain College.
I didn't go there.
Okay.
It wasn't really a school by the time I was in grad school.
Okay.
It really closed in the 60s. But it's something that we studied, and all the artists who were there, Rauschenberg, Cy Twombly, John Cage taught there.
Oh my goodness.
Joseph Albers taught painting there. It's, and then the literature side was amazing too. So anyhow. It's not that I want to recreate Black Mountain College, but the thing about Black Mountain College that was amazing was that it was a truly collaborative, non-hierarchical setup where the students and the teachers all like built sheds, and it wasn't exactly a commune, but it was on that edge. And Rauschenberg met Cy Twombly there, so et cetera.
It's definitely historical, obviously a historical place.
And John Cage would always talk about it. He said, well, the real teaching happened in the lunchroom and at the bar, which is always how it should be.
Yeah.
Although this is coffee, but
Yeah, exactly.
So I thought it would be interesting to use social media as a multiple platform, not to recreate Black Mountain College, but to perhaps have the spirit of it in which there wouldn't be one activity, but there would be many. And that's really the reason I called it Trees, because it's like one thing that has all these different branches. And I don't want it to be brandable in a traditional corporate way. And I'm not against that either. But for me, it's the idea that you really could have anything under that purview. And if it's a life-affirming activity, whether it's art related, certainly I want to deal with art, but I also want to deal with mental health, education. So the crux of the podcast hasn't really started yet, but I really want to have conversations with people, and I really like to live stream them on Instagram and perhaps Facebook. Now that I see you guys have it all figured out, I am like about a baby this big, but I'm gonna learn. And perhaps make them put them on SoundCloud and iTunes, and literally have them on every platform possible. I want to use TikTok.
Oh, for sure.
So I want to have conversations. I'm doing the story time, which to me is the smallest part of it. But I also would like to invite artists, maybe you guys included, to make pieces for the channel that, like to invite time-based pieces. I would like to invite performance artists of all kinds to do like a 30-second TikTok thing.
Oh, wow.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to actually use platforms like Omegle, which I don't know if you guys know what that is.
I've never heard of that one.
I've used it before.
Okay.
Years ago.
So,
yeah.
You want to tell them what it is, or do you want me to tell them?
No, go ahead.
So Omegle is, somebody is going to be offended, but it's kind of an awful platform.
It is.
Which is,
really bad.
so let me tell you a quick story if we have time.
Yeah.
Oh, we have plenty of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I was watching YouTube, I was, one of the guys that I discovered was this guy named Darren Levy, who has a really great YouTube channel. The name of his channel is Funny Uber Rides, and he's from Melbourne. And
I know that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So his channel was one of the ones that I was like, this guy is a fucking artist, man. He's an amazing editor. He takes 3 rides with people that are interesting, and then he intercuts them, and then he really is almost creating it almost feels like you're watching a play, except it's real. And he is also just a lovely guy, and he's not sort of a brandable YouTube character, which is also fine. I'm not against that, but he's just himself.
Very authentic, if anything.
He's super authentic.
Yeah.
So, but this is what really got me to want to do the podcast. The truth is, it's him. When COVID hit, he quit driving his cab or his Uber car,
Right.
like a lot of people did, right? But instead of drawing his channel up, he decided to start another one, which he calls Banter. And what he did was he was like, he has a lot of followers. He's pretty famous, I think, rightly so. He would go on Omegle, and he would like tell his followers, well, I'm going to be on Omegle from 7 till 10 if anybody wants to chat. And man, people were just like scrambling to try and find this dude. So then he would have conversations and basically do what he did from the, the Uber channel, and just intercut them. And I don't want to say they were better, but to me they were even better because they were very moving. And I felt like I was listening to, not a self-help thing, but there were really profound interactions that happened.
For sure.
One with this little kid. Anyway, so I was like, I suddenly had the thought that Darren Levy is like an avant-garde artist who is using a cutting-edge technology, but the new avant-garde artist isn't like an anarchist that tears shit down, which was totally appropriate for the 60s and 70s. I think the new avant-garde artist builds communities and is like deals with not positivity in a kind of sunshiny, rose-colored glasses way, but I that's kind of what I want to do.
No.
Is the truth.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and maybe there will be more aspects to it even than I'm already listing. I don't know how many aspects there might be.
Yeah.
So it's kind of large scale, maybe.
I mean, thinking about when you were saying about a tree, and a tree has branches, the tree doesn't necessarily know where the branches are going to go.
Right.
You know, right? And it may grow one branch off that one branch, or may grow like 100 little branches off that one branch. You know, it just kind of like, it's organic and natural in that way. And so I think that's
But
really
the full disclosure is that I did not think of that name trees rationally. I was falling asleep in the bathtub after I moved. I really was. I was literally nodding off, and I suddenly woke up, and I was like, the name of the channel is Trees. I don't know why. And I was hanging out with my girlfriend and another friend, and we were just talking about it, and I was like, it's Trees. And they're like, that's a good name. And,
that's a great name.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I can't take credit for it because I didn't mean to think of it. But see, that's the thing about the organic process of, like, you guys know what I'm talking about when you're painting, and it's just shit just happens, accidents and all that. So I'm like, I really am into just being honest about those things and not pretending that I'm smarter or that it's more rationally thought about. I do think that conceptually it's very tight though.
Yeah.
But not intentionally so. So
yeah.
That's
it seems like the way that you describe it sounds very present in that kind of a way. It's like there's that point where you go from having an intention and then just kind of living through your experience and seeing where that experience takes you.
Well, yes. I mean, one of my I would say my favorite contemporary painter, he's not alive, but is Philip Guston. I think for me, he's the greatest of the 20th century. But I don't even believe in doing that. Sorry. It's like, whatever. He's one of the greats. but he also talks unbelievable. There's a film called Philip Guston, A Life Lived, which I would recommend to anybody, in which he's actually painting, and then he talks about his process. And he says, it's kind of like taking, he said, I almost got to the top of the mountain, but then kind of halfway up, there's some cool paths over there, some detours, and he really knows how to talk about his process without taking the life out of it. He understands what he doesn't understand, but he's extremely articulate about it, which I actually think, in terms of talking to students about artist statements and things, that's sort of what I would like to sort of encourage, which is not to try and explain what you don't know because you want to look like you know more.
Yeah.
Which we've all done it, okay?
Yeah,
I've done it.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, if I showed you, my first 15 or 20 years of my artist statements, it's hilarious. I mean,
we're all like, who is
so
that
I'm not
person?
I'm not above it, man.
Oh, for sure.
But there was a point where I realized I was not doing myself or my viewers or my gallerists any service by pretending to be what I wasn't. So.
Yeah.
And what I don't mean to cut you off, but what made you kind of come to that point where you're like, let me just be more authentically me?
You mean in terms of as an artist, or you mean in terms of talking about my work?
Talking about your work.
I think the truth is it was being down in the trenches at openings, talking about my work with my work in front of me. Because the thing about work is, it is like it will mock you if you bullshit. Oh. I mean, not literally, but I feel like it's on the wall saying, you're fucking full of shit, dude. I don't think so. And so, I mean, I guess it was actually wanting to have conversations that were also just wanting to, I think if you put work out in the world, you can learn an awful lot from anybody. I'm not saying artists or even critics, but who is willing to take a look at it and experience it. But then, if you really want to learn more about yourself, you have to be willing to be real with them. So I think that was part of it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I lost my train of thought. Yeah, in the classroom, I mean.
That's a good thing, probably. Well,
it wasn't meant to be. Yeah, so I think that's a great thinking about where you were then, even though I didn't know where you were when I first met you, and to now, it seems like your process of like helping yourself and trying to help other artists and help everyone who might be interested in what you're interested in, like understand themselves better. And I think that's as an artist, and for all the other artists out there, that's all we could ever want is just like somebody, like not necessarily to tell us what to do, but to still like kind of be on the same path and like be vocal about it, and it helps us understand that. And so I think
for sure.
that's exactly what you're doing.
Well,
and
thank you.
And it's already helpful for me and for, I'm sure, for Alex.
Oh, no, I'm riveted already. Let's put it that way.
The thing you guys need to understand, or not that you need to understand, you probably do, but see, I feel the same way about this conversation. I mean, the difference between me now and me in the past is I was always like into people, but I don't think in my heart I considered this conversation in the same importance, and this is just the truth of my past, as my private studio practice. I think I kind of hoarded it. You know, I always think about Joseph Campbell, the mythologist, talking about the difference between Western dragons and Eastern dragons. Is Western dragons are hoarders. They like, as he said, they collect and hoard stuff that they can't use. Gold and virgins, neither of which they can make any use of, you know. But goddamn, they're not going to let you have even one little nugget. And definitely not the girl. So, but the Eastern dragon, you know, is a symbol of life and you know prosperity and you know energy. And so to me, I was the Western dragon in a certain way. I'm not saying I was a terrible like greedy guy, but I definitely hoarded in my heart. Kept a little piece not for anybody else. And maybe that's okay. I'm not saying even judging that, but it wasn't okay for me. It was not good for me. And now I don't feel that way. Like to me, this conversation and driving to Chino to see my student Alex I drove for, an hour and a half to talk to him for 20 minutes today, right before I came here.
Wow. And
I was really happy I did.
Wow.
Because he's killing it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't see it as anything like out of ordinary. I just see it as just part of just my practice. My art practice is that too.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Well, yeah.
No, I think it's so funny that you mentioned that the way that I learned in a non-traditional way when it came to my art was through kind of falling into a collaborative kind of experience with this one guy who talked very much the same way about his craft. Like he was almost like, you are like lucky that I'm teaching you these things, and that he would keep a lot of things very close to the vest and almost be like reveal things to me on a need to know basis kind of
non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah, exactly, literally. And I was just like just tell me what's going on. He'd be like, okay, I'm gonna let you in on like what we're gonna be doing here, and yada yada yada.
Right.
And it's funny to see that flip to like just openness and just being there, like ready to see where life is gonna take you, because life is the process, right?
Well, yeah, it really reminds me of one of my favorite poets and writers just died, I think, a few years ago, named David Anton. But he taught at UCSD in San Diego, and he's amazing. Anyway, he said something in one of his talks that he felt that anything, ideas, images, would be like a tool, like a hammer that you would just, and if anybody could use it, you would hope they would be like, you can use my hammer, man.
Oh, hell yeah.
And then I was like, yes. I mean, so, and this gets a little controversial. I mean, I think a lot of people might find this idea really ridiculous, but I do not believe in copyrights.
Interesting.
And I don't blame people who do. Just to be clear, I'm not trying to say people should think like me, but when I really am objective about it, and I think about how culture advanced, even just Western culture, so let's not even talk about other cultures. I mean, I don't think that Beethoven cared that he took the Ode to Joy 9th Symphony theme from somebody else, or I'm not sure he asked Friedrich Schiller if he could use his poem. And then et cetera, like, I mean, stealing ideas, as David Foster Wallace said, it's not what you lift, it's how you carry it. So anyway, I mean, I understand why copyrights exist, and there's good reasons for it, but I think that it's gotten to the point of hoarding, like we were talking about, and not particularly useful for advancing the culture. So whatever, I mean, people can think what they want about that, but that's what I think.
Oh, I mean, I completely agree. I think, one of the best advice I ever got was from this artist named Kenton Nelson when I was like first starting out. He basically told me I was like, I don't know necessarily what I'm doing here, but I love painting, and what can you give me advice for? And he said, he gave me a book of a contemporary art book from the MoMA. And he said, look for artists that you like, copy them, and see what you can do with it.
Totally.
And if, that idea of being able to build upon what was before you, like that's the way a civilization is built, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the idea, I've been thinking a lot about this because of teaching, the idea that a concept or a piece of art is better if it's, quote, original, whatever that means. I don't even know what it means, actually. But if, let's say it does exist. Yeah. What is the virtue in that? Actually, you know what I think, and this is, again, going to piss somebody off, but I think it's about ego, not about the work. I think it's about, I thought of something somebody else didn't. And, then it reminds me of another thing that Joseph Campbell said. No, I'm sorry. Jose Luis Borges, the poet and short story writer.
Get your quotations right.
Yeah, God damn it, Joe. You didn't do your research, man. You slacker. I'm a slacker. I don't care. I did correct it. But he gave a series of lectures. He did a series of Norton Harvard lectures, which are amazing. I mean, listen to them because they are fucking genius. But he talks about how old epics like the Odyssey, the entire form of epic poetry and narratives are based on the idea that you do know what is going to happen. There's no plot. There's no suspense. Jason is going to get the golden fleece. Yeah. It's not about whether he is. It's how he does it.
Yeah, exactly.
And the notion that known quantities and formulas from myths are actually what makes them good. They're not original. They are formulaic, and they're formulaic based on humanity and human concerns, which is why we all relate to them.
Interesting.
Which is why the hero's journey by Joseph Campbell makes sense, and the three-act structure, and the whole, everybody sort of, and I love, listen, nobody loves avant-garde cinema more than me. I'm a huge fan of.
Oh yeah, we believe it.
yeah, you do believe it. But I'm also realized that quote, Hollywood blockbuster formulaic movies, I think are equally profound. And I used to be a fucking snob before. And so I'm telling you, I am really eating my own humble pie on this one. And I think that's okay too. Yeah. But I think, everything, including pop music and Disney, which I, quite frankly, to be honest, I've never been to Disneyland. Ever.
Really?
What?
Yes.
Joe,
I am going. I know.
The fans are gonna come riot.
I know, but they won't riot because I'm gonna get on my knees and like do the shuffle around it. No, I'm not gonna do that. but I actually feel like it was my error of being arrogant and like being kind of like, common. It's really snobbery.
No, I mean,
and I think differently now.
You grew up here though, right?
No, I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa.
I knew that. Okay, so when did you come to LA again?
I came to LA in 2000. I moved here from Portland, Oregon. Okay.
And nobody immediately forced you to go to Disneyland? Like,
nobody did.
I got you a ticket. We're going right away.
They may have tried.
You're like, no way.
I think I blacked it out of my memory, to be honest. I'm not sure. I'm taking the fifth on that. I mean, it's even funny because I even remember reading a pretty fairly well-known essay by Baudrillard on Disneyland, but I didn't fucking go.
It's all good. I mean, obviously nobody can go to Disneyland right now.
But I am going to go because I mean, most of my students work there in some capacity.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's very close to Cal State Fullerton.
Oh, no, it's the backyard.
Oh, that is true, huh?
Yeah.
But anyway, it's Disneyland.
Well, speaking, so I'm kind of curious. What about, was it just the commercialism, like the heavy commercialism of it? Or?
Okay, the truth is that I went to see Fantasia when I was 5, like we all did, or some of us did. I hated it.
Really?
I really despised it. I mean, I had a visceral negative reaction.
Really?
She's laughing.
I love Fantasia.
Yeah,
I'm like, it's so beautiful.
Oh, I know. Listen. I mean, my people who know me are gonna be. They're maybe, that's Joe. I didn't like the color.
It's funny. We just talked about it yesterday.
We were. No, that's so funny.
It is so good. I just didn't like the whole tone, and I also didn't love Disney movies, even though I thought they were amazing. I thought they were creepy, and they made me feel disturbed.
Interesting.
Which I mean, let's face it, Pinocchio is pretty disturbing.
Oh,
yes.
for sure.
Oh, without a doubt.
Nobody can deny that.
But what I wasn't thinking about that I do now is that, and I know Walt Disney was a weird dude too. There's all kinds of weird shit. But who cares? I mean, he really captured something essential about American culture. And so that's the thing is I don't want to always bring this back to therapy, but it does relate to it. I have to mention it because it's really about sitting with discomfort. And I think that discomfort is a general state that many viewers, and whether they're art viewers or readers or movie watchers, find objectionable and automatically put into the category of if a piece makes them uncomfortable, it's bad or it's less worthwhile.
Yeah.
And my feeling is that that's bullshit, man, because those are the things that are kind of needling at you, and you need to think about it. So for me, Disney made me uncomfortable, but I think Disney was a genius for sure in a number of ways.
For sure.
And Philip Glass even wrote an opera about him.
Really?
Which I have not heard yet, but I know that was one of his more recent projects that I remember reading or hearing about.
Oh, I have to check that out. I think he's an amazing composer.
Oh my God.
goodness.
I've been listening to Philip Glass like for 6 hours a day
Oh,
while I'm working on his fucking skulls, man. That's because he's somebody who definitely understands repetitive obsessive process.
Oh, for sure.
Have you guys seen that film, that biography film that was made about him a few years ago?
Not at all.
Philip
No.
Glass, A Portrait in 6 Parts. The problem is that Philip Glass is extremely protective of his copyright, and you cannot find this film, man.
What?
You can't.
It's on no streaming site.
It's not
or
on a
nothing?
streaming site,
Oh,
and
my
even
goodness.
the DVD on Amazon costs like $200-$300 because it's out of print, and you can't find it.
Yike.
And you used to be able to watch it for free on YouTube.
Oh.
Anyway, but it is worth seeing. It is an amazingly good film.
Oh no, that's gonna
I'm
haunt
sorry.
me.
I bet you guys can figure it out.
We're gonna find it.
You're a lot
Yeah,
savvier than
we're gonna get to the bottom.
And you're gonna
of this.
call me when you do.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. I'm gonna send you the link or whatever. We're gonna have to figure out.
I'll pay for it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about your artistic craft.
Sure.
Your,
Yeah.
So today you brought.
I did.
This. When did you make this series?
Let me look at the date.
I don't remember.
Okay, so this is from 2010. So yeah, sure. It's the only one I have left that's finished at the moment. This is a series of monkeys that I made. I made them between 2009 and 2010, and I probably made about 40 or 50 of them, something like that. And
50 of these.
yeah.
Over what? Over what period of time?
I think from about I would say January of 2009 to probably a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is the last one that you have.
It's the last one I have. Most of them, it's not that they all sold even, but most of my work that exists is actually sitting with the gallery that I work with in Berlin, Kukai and Kukai, which I really love them. And the series was actually a reaction against. You may have seen some of the really large-scale drawings that I've done in the past, which are like huge and take like sometimes a year or 2 years to make. And I was working on another round of them. I was mocking them up on my wall, and my friend Dan Webb, this incredible sculptor, sent me. I had not read David Foster Wallace yet, and that is also ironic because I can't stop talking about the guy. But he sent me an essay that Wallace wrote called Laughing with Kafka, where he talks about Kafka being funny and how his students don't understand why he's funny because it's not a normal American humor. Anyway, he really talks about his emotional connection and the real visceral, gooey, messy things that Kafka really digs at. And I was like, for some reason, I was working on like 6 of these things. I've been working on this shit for a year and a half. And I literally looked at my stuff for about 10 minutes and I ripped it off the wall.
Wow.
In 3 minutes. And abandoned a year and a half's worth of work, and I literally threw it in the garbage.
Wow.
And was just like, man, I just felt like it was empty and kind of smarty pants and detached and aloof, and all the things I thought I wanted were. So I actually decided to just do these things. I was working on this big drawing of like 500 monkeys in this landscape. It kind of was like a Bruegel-like landscape. And I wonder if I should have kept going because it could have been cool. But anyway, I was like, well, I'm just going to do single monkeys and get back into psychology, and almost like these are like portraits.
Oh, interesting.
And I thought about monkeys as human psychological states. So even though these are monkeys, they really are about like people. Like this is actually about Michael Jackson, which you're going to be like, what?
What? Interesting.
I can see the
Yeah.
little white glove.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I remember when I've always loved Michael Jackson, and when he died, I remember feeling I had this image of him as Dorian Gray-ish. Like when he looked in the mirror, he might see the crumbling, desperate guy
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
nobody else could see.
That's probably true.
So that's,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's true or not, it's just how I felt about him. And I remember the day he died, I was in physical therapy because I popped my Achilles tendon, and I was it was like this, I was in horrible pain because of this PT I was doing while I was watching him, like, in the ambulance, if you remember that shot. So I just had this memory of it when I did this painting of this is actually Michael Jackson's inner self.
Interesting.
And that's why, but it's not a funny, this is nothing funny or glib about it. It's kind of a dark, like, nobody was going to buy this piece. And,
Really?
I mean, maybe they would, but nobody did.
Wow.
But it's actually one of my faves.
So the other ones that you did are kind of done in a similar manner.
They're done in a
Like,
very
with the
similar
similar
manner. Yeah, you
idea.
can see them on my website. I mean, there are single monkeys. They're literally just taken from stock photos.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't pay for them because as you know, I don't care. But I think painting from them is okay.
Yeah.
And they were chosen. All the monkeys are chosen because they're not doing things. They're sitting, and they're sitting in a very human, weird, like waiting room-ish way. And then there are always one or two human objects or three that give. It's very similar to like the allegorical portraits from the Renaissance, where like the Holbein paintings, where he'd do a portrait of some guy who worked for Henry VIII, and you would know what he did because Holbein would surround him with objects that related to his life, and sometimes narrative ideas too.
Yeah.
So I'm really, I'm an old I love the old masters.
Yeah,
Probably more than
you got the new tattoo.
I got the Holbein tattoo.
You got the
Wow.
Holbein.
I had
I
no
just
clue
showed it
about
to you
this
today.
this painting, and she showed it to me. Amazing. Like,
It's
it's
an
so
amazing
it's so strange. It almost to me looks like
Yeah.
a digital image.
Oh no, it is.
Yeah.
But apparently that anamorphic kind of trick was not that uncommon. It's just interesting how art history sanitizes and cleans up all the really cool shit. But the story behind that painting is really quite interesting historically. I don't know if you guys read about it.
Oh, I mean, we talked about it a lot over the course of my classes.
Okay, so you guys talked about Henry VIII and the reason that he was hired to paint those ambassador guys.
I don't remember specifically the story, so that's what I was going to say. If you could
Yeah, I'll tell you.
tell that anyways.
So Henry VIII, was like, I want to marry somebody else, and screw the Catholic Church. I'm going to just get divorced. Fuck you guys. And so, it caused this total shitstorm, and not just with the Catholic Church, but with all the countries in Europe. So France sent these two ambassador guys to try and talk him down. Of course, nobody could talk him down. But Holbein was his court painter, and so he did all kinds of stuff, like paint portraits of all kinds of people. So he was commissioned to paint these guys, and I don't know if this was Holbein's choice or it probably was, because he often would give clues about what was going on. So not only did he give clues about these guys being ambassadors, he was like telling a story about how dark the times were, and like so there were all these symbols of discord, like there's a lute with broken strings, and there's like a bunch of objects in there that are about that. Yeah. But he really tripled down with this skull, because the skull is like the death, memento mori, typical Vanitas thing.
Yeah.
But dude, Holbein is like a badass, because he's like, fuck it, man, I'm gonna like make this. You're right. As a realist portrait painting, it is truly odd.
It's so
It really
interesting.
is.
Yeah.
But it's also not unprecedented either. I don't think he just came up with it out of the blue.
Okay.
But I actually went to London not to see that painting, but that was. That's always been one of my favorite paintings. And dude, that painting is huge.
Really?
It's like 6 by 5 feet.
Oh wow.
And oh my god, it's just really, it's insane.
Wow.
So yeah, I
It's
just
a-
love that skull. I've always loved it. And maybe it's almost sacrilegious to kind of turn it into a tattoo, but I actually don't think so.
No.
And shout out to Leo Lamberin, who's an incredible tattoo artist.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No.
It looks
impeccable.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. So I made a drawing to just to kind of excerpt it, but to make it easier to anyway.
So you mentioned earlier before we started talking about this series that you had been drawing some skulls. You started drawing some skulls.
You mean now?
Yeah.
Yes,
now.
I'm working on. Yes, I'm doing I'm just starting it. It's a 6 by 8 foot. It's going to be a painting more than a drawing, is the truth. Of a sort of a skull pile, like in a kind of pyramidal shape.
Okay.
And it's probably going to be like it could be 3,000 skulls, each unique, just all kind of butted together and rendered for very detail.
Wow.
Yeah, I would
It's
expect
going
no
to take
less.
a long time.
Are you doing that on paper or are you doing it on canvas?
I'm actually going to do it on panel. is my new. Yeah, I was going to do it on paper, and I was talking with Tom LeDuc, who's by the way, he's an incredible LA artist. He's like one of the best.
Tom LeDuc.
Tom LeDuc.
LeDuc. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like, dang, that's
what
a name.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and he actually is an alum from Fullerton.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Undergrad.
Cool.
The guy, I mean, I truly do think this guy's a genius, and I would not throw that term around. But he's an amazingly nice guy.
Okay.
Wow.
Anyway, I've been becoming more friendly with him, and he was like, "Why don't you do it on a panel? You know, why are you doing it on paper?" And the thing that really cracks me up is that initially I was like, "Because I like paper," and you know how many times I've given grad students and you guys a hard time for saying that.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Dude, that is fucking lame." I'm like, "Yes, sir, you are right.
You got
it
it.
is lame."
Yeah.
And I'm not. I mean, I would do it on paper if I wanted to, but there was no good reason for me to do it on paper other than it was a habit.
Oh,
And the truth is, as an object, this was going to be much more powerful on a panel, I think.
Oh, definitely.
So we'll see. I'm just starting. I'm working on little panel paintings of just like tests, rendering tests.
And why the skull?
Well, the truth is, it's a little bit like the trees thing. I woke up one day, I'm like, I'm going to do a pile of skulls because I want to, and that's the only thing I knew. But I really love skulls. I've always loved them. The guy I studied painting with them, the guy I studied painting with, always had me drawing bones and still lives, and I partially like it because it is the biggest cliche possible, and I really like going through that wall, and I love them, and everybody loves them.
Yes.
That's the thing, and I actually have often been grouped in the past with like lowbrow artists and pop surrealism in my work.
Okay.
Because I think it's as an illustrational kind of style. And in the past, it always used to grate on my nerves because I was wanting to be like Mr. White Cube Gallery guy. I didn't want to be like dragged down into the populist. Now I'm just like, I'm all for it, man.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure, embrace it, try it.
Well,
I mean,
by the way, I think Bruegel was an illustrator. I mean, the whole, I will call out Cal State Fullerton in one way here. The whole, in critiques, you're doing illustrative work as if, it's like you have this fucking scarlet letter now. You're off in the corner doing detention. I think it's bullshit. I think it's just like some weird, meaningless critical label that people don't even know what it means.
Do you think it's just because like it's an antiquated look, like people are not willing to change?
No, I think it's a stylistic thing that's based on the art market being snobby and being like, well, comic books and low art forms. That whole, there was a famous show back in the 90s called High Low, curated by Kirk Varnado, which is a great exhibition catalog, kind of talking about comics, Roy Lichtenstein elevating them. But the thing is, even his premise is in some ways perpetuating that snobbish position, even using the word high and low to describe it.
Yeah.
But whatever, he was a transitional guy. I don't blame him. But then there was the Masters of American Comics exhibition at MoCA a few years ago. I mean, Chris Ware is as good as any old master. I defy anybody to argue with me about that. I mean, and there's so many like geniuses who are doing graphic novels. So I just don't understand why it matters whether something's illustrative or abstract or narrative or not. It's all just a continuum, and all art is interesting.
Yeah, agreed.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I mean, and that's one of the reasons why I actually wanted you to come on, because we've talked to, this is our 6th episode, but I mean, just on the outside of this, not even within this, so we know so many other artists, and half of the artists have gone to school and half of them haven't. We always ask, like, what's your experience with it? Do you feel like you should have went to art school? Do you feel like that your time was spent well at art school? Do you feel like you actually got what you needed? And was it hard to get through? All these other things. And so, it's just like, where is it worth it?
Ooh,
that's a good one.
Because you went to art
suddenly
school.
I'm starting to sweat.
I know. No. Because you do have another opinion in terms of what it is like kind of inside, because us as students, of course, as you know, there's just like so much, like we'll put a lot into projects and we'll be like, oh, it's so good, like I feel so great about it, and then teachers sometimes are like, I don't get like what, like you're not trying hard enough.
I think I was one of those guys.
That sounds so strangely like me.
Like I thought, I think you're better than this, and
Oh man.
Yeah. But
There's a question in there somewhere.
Yeah.
there's a.
I'm waiting.
Well, is it worth it? You know,
Oh,
like
okay.
tell
Yeah.
me about your experience in art school specifically,
Okay.
and then
Yeah.
on the other side, like, was there anything that changed for you?
Sure,
And how
yes.
you viewed it, and
The answer is yes. I think I can actually answer these. It might take a couple minutes to do.
No, please. Yeah.
So I didn't go to art school, by the way. See, that's the thing.
What?
I mean, I didn't go
Oh.
to an art school. So if you use the term art school, maybe you mean it
well,
generally.
I wouldn't consider Cal State
No.
Fullerton an art school, but I still consider it art school because that's
Okay.
because
Right.
the section that I spent.
Right.
there
Okay,
was
so I
really,
did then.
like-
Yes, I
Okay.
did. So I think it is worth it, or it generally is worth it. Though, see, there's always going to be a caveat with this because the idea that you need to go to school to do anything is, I think, maybe to be a doctor. Even then, you could learn to be a doctor theoretically. Obviously, there's more risks.
There's
You
a
know,
lot
like
more
if I
risk
don't
there.
Rolling the dice a little
if
bit
I don't
that
get the
one.
cross hatching right, nobody's gonna die. I mean,
Yeah.
Exactly.
maybe I'll die of embarrassment later, but I
Yeah.
might anyway. But so I do still think that it is worth it generally because there's a lot of information packed into a smaller amount of time. So in terms of efficiency, but I am increasingly thinking that it is not that worth it. I'm sorry to say that, and I know that's going to sound strange coming from somebody who's been teaching for 31 years, by the way, in
That's a long
universities.
time.
It is.
Yeah.
Because I think that digital revolution has changed a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, my ideas on teaching drawing and painting, I think, are going to be very objectionable to maybe you guys too. Like, I actually don't think that traditional skills are necessary to be an artist. Now, I'm not saying that they're not worth studying if that's what you want, but I actually do not believe that, for example, in a beginning drawing class, that anybody should be graded on mastering freehand drawing, sighting and measuring. I think they should be familiarized with those techniques. But if I taught a figure drawing class, I would let people draw in an anime style for their portfolio.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah.
Well, hell no is not
No,
how
no,
it
yeah.
works. though.
No
I
way.
mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly could be just happy to never draw a fucking still life again because they're boring as fuck.
Of course they are. Yeah.
Well,
I
I mean, yeah, it's like it's this idea of force feeding orthodoxy. I don't buy it. I don't even think the old masters worked that way. My observation based on research and thinking about old master techniques is that the French academic style that is taught in typical realist painting classes was not at all the thing that developed the icons of art history. Van Eyck, Holbein, Vermeer. They had very quirky styles. And by the way, they used projectors. Sorry to tell you, but they did. Many of them did. Holbein certainly did. Vermeer absolutely did.
yeah.
Wow.
Rembrandt absolutely did sometimes.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And see, that's the
Yeah.
thing. You're like, what?
Yeah.
Because it's the technology of the time, and all artists use the technology of the time. It doesn't take anything away from their achievement. I mean,
without a
David
doubt,
Hockney's
yeah.
book on this is super interesting.
Let's check that out.
Yeah, it's worth it. Anyway, so my feeling is that it is worth it, though, because you get a space to develop yourself. And even if you're getting orthodoxy shoved down your throat, which I really do object to at the moment, like I'm really allergic to that, even in that situation, if you take ownership of your education and just like to me, even art history, I'm like, I get 3 credits to stare at like Vermeer on the wall for a couple hours. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how anybody could not like that.
Yeah.
If you like art. So, but I really do not think that anybody needs to go to school to be an artist, period. You could learn part of what I would like to do on my trees thing is actually I didn't talk about this, but I would actually like to add super practical studio tutorials.
That'd be awesome.
Like how
Yeah.
literally, so all my things about orthodoxy, I'm actually going to contradict it. Like I would like to say, this is how you draw 2-point perspective. Here's a demo. Here's a series of lessons. Go do it yourself. Skip the $50,000 art school dude, and here you go. Because who needs that?
Yeah. No.
That's funny. I just I brought up an idea the other day I was thinking of, and
You
I was
did?
like, Joe would be the perfect person to do this. And I was thinking, no,
no.
it's not
Here we
bad.
go.
It's not bad. It's just kind of like it kind of caters to your idea of like wanting to kind of teach people on the outside of the system that has already been set up, in the way that you think that could be, and that had to do with critiques because
well, it's funny that you meant. I'm sorry, I'll let you finish.
real quick.
Yeah.
I was talking with everybody that we've talked with, or anybody who's asked me like, what was your favorite part about being in school and learning your craft through school, and it was like being in the critiques, as like horrible as they can be sometimes, like they were. I mean, you can't beat still having a community of people around you
Just
who,
input
even if they're not in the same medium as you, understand the kind of like process and skill and color and all these things. And being an artist outside of that, like immediately as soon as I got out of school and I was trying to make things, I was like, who can I go to like tell me if this looks cool or if it's like or anything. No, I have Alex, but there's still
no,
like
you need that. We all do need that. No, I seriously agree with you about that.
And so the idea was that there would be like a small periods of time during a week, maybe like 2 days a week, where there'd be like a allotted hour where people could sign up, like maybe have 3 people for that hour, because critiques can take a long time, but do like a live critique.
Well, that is exactly part of what I'm going to do on trees.
Yeah, perfect. So it'd be like a live feed, and people can tune in and see the work that's there, and then you can critique them and have a conversation about like, this is where I think you're going. For the people who haven't had the opportunity to go to school yet, have no idea if they want to pursue
I mean, I think there's a real need for that, or a real desire for that. Maybe need's the wrong word, but I mean, I think the thing is, like, again, it's not an original idea at all. Like, you thought of it, I thought of it, and that means that lots of people could do it. Like, to me, it could be like a module that anybody could plug into and do their own one.
Yeah.
I have yet
I think
to
that's
personally.
the great thing about the internet, about technology.
Well, I think it's exponentially. I think it's unsaturatable market at the moment, and I don't know anything about theories about that, but I think that the typical like linear capitalist idea of saturated markets, and you want to make sure you brand yourself, and I actually think it doesn't matter. I think if somebody's doing something on the internet, you have a better chance to get more people, not a worse chance. But do it your way and
make it unique at the end.
Make it yours. I even think yours is a better word than unique.
That is
not to criticize your word, but
no, but I think that is more succinct for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, because it embodies more of what you're going to be able to bring to the table. Yeah, rather than this ambiguous idea.
I also feel very strongly that education should not cost a fucking dime. I'm serious. I do not think it should. I think the idea that it costs money is a error. And I don't blame people, because humans are flawed, and so you try things, but it's like, come on, guys.
It keeps a lot of people away from from learning.
It also quite frankly, it makes institutions make horrible choices that are not in the interest of education.
Exactly.
And in a way, I don't even blame them, because they're running it like a shoe company, not like learning, because they have to for profit. But screw that. I mean, that's the thing about YouTube and Instagram is that if you get followers and you get paid from advertisers, you don't have to charge your subscribers anything.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
That's why it's good. See what I'm saying? That's why I would easily prefer, ultimately, long down the road, to dump the institution for myself, or to keep a connection with it, but to have my main connection be digital.
Well, I think you would thrive, to be perfectly honest.
Well, I mean, my plan is to do it.
Yeah. I mean, just from the small, like, for example, being someone that kind of came into a traditional learning setting, and just to even be allowed to come in, I thought that was first, like, phenomenal. I couldn't believe that. I guess my viewpoint, and maybe this could be like a shared perspective from other people who have not gone the traditional route when it came to their learning in art, that it was something that'd be kind of more elitist, and kind of, there'd be a boundary there, right?
You're talking about
when we came in to do the orange crates.
Yeah, when you came into the critique class.
Yeah, exactly.
See, right. Yeah. See, but okay. So first of all, I hate that shit. But second of all, and I'm really happy that you came. But the fact that you had that feeling, despite the fact that nobody said you couldn't, is part of the problem of the error in that place. Not that place in particular. Fullerton is just like a normal place. They're all the same. Yeah. There's this that's what I really would like to break down. That whatever it is that makes that phenomenon, the oxygen in the air, that is like a default setting in people's heads. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be teaching the crit class next semester, by the way, which we won't talk about. But if I do, I'm going to fucking live stream it.
Hell yeah.
Although
that'd be
they won't let
amazing.
me. But you know what?
I don't
I'm
know
going to
if
do it
that's
anyway.
allowed.
But I
You have to
will.
sign some waivers
I
that
will
way.
get my students to sign waivers, and
Yeah.
any student who doesn't want to, I will not. Of course.
Yeah.
But what I would like to do would also to be invite like 30 LA artists every time. I would actually like to have. I would literally like to have a monitor on the wall outside, like in a concert when it's too full, and you
Yeah,
can watch it in the bar.
Yeah.
We won't have a bar though.
Yeah.
We could have a barista.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
But seriously, man, to make it like a spectacle, but in a real, in a kind of beautiful sense, not in a like. And the critique thing does not have to be carve them up. I mean, I think I'm a pretty okay critiquer, but I can tell you one thing: if you're in that class again, you could come.
Ooh.
I
mean,
come,
Yeah.
You guys could both come anytime.
I would
you
love
want.
to. Hey.
But
Just
it's
hang out.
I don't. It's not going to be. This is why you need to change all this stuff. It's going to be what is it that you're trying to say, and how can we help you?
Yeah.
And yet sometimes it might involve critical things, like maybe that blue is not the color that's saying what you think it's saying. But it's not the same as you need to bend to my will because I'm the teacher. And unfortunately, that is the way many professors, not naming any names, treat that. And I am going to be like St. George fighting the fucking dragon on that one, because I really think it does harm.
Yeah.
Do you think it's more prevalent, that kind of mindset?
It is.
Really?
It is, and it is for many reasons. I mean, you know, the age of criticism from the postmodern. I mean, postmodernism really came out of literary and architectural theory, which is very egg-headed and interesting, but it's all about deconstructing the text, and it's very meta. You know, it's like, and you know, going back to David Foster Wallace, which I told you I'd mention him again, had to do it. You know, he. The thing I like about him as an example for this is that he grew up in the '80s like me and went to grad school the same time I did. He's like 4 years older than me, and he went through. He was a super meta postmodern writer, very smart, smarty pants. And he said in an interview that he thought it was terrible, but when he was a student, he thought the point of being a writer was to show people how smart you were. What he eventually ended up realizing was the point is to talk about what a human being is. And he made an interesting transition, which is maybe mine is parallel to his in a certain way. I would like that to be true. So that what that means to me is that all this stuff about how we critique is based on this old model of intelligence and detachment, which existed for a reason, but times fucking change.
So do you believe that there is absolutely no benefit in that kind of teaching style?
No,
then?
I don't believe
Like
that.
that harder structure,
No,
like you should do it this
I
way?
think there is a benefit to it for some people. So no, I think that all structures have potential value. What I object to is the idea of orthodoxy, that structure is
It's like
A,
law.
superior,
Yeah.
and is B, the only game in town. Or if it's not the only game in town, it sort of poo-poos the other games. And that is how it is.
Yeah.
They got thumb their noses at
Yeah.
other people. Yeah.
Which is why using the word illustrative is not cool, for example, or any kind of categorical judgment about a person's piece. You know, the idea that a piece is inconsistent. I'm like, have you guys looked at like German neo-German expressionism lately? The ironic thing is that a lot of the criticisms that are leveled during critiques would carve up the heroes that the people who are making the criticisms of feel. So like they're not even really. It's really hypocrisy is a normal human thing, but in this case, it is delusional. I really, and I'm being kind of harsh about this, and I was part of it. So I'm criticizing myself right now in the past. So, yeah.
Well, I think that the kind of the good thing about this moment, or just something to think about for everyone, is to just understanding where you might have been in that situation and where you are now, and viewing it in a way that is like beneficial to your health, and staying mindful of like, you know, like if you understand that you were a certain way, especially in the arts, in this case, and you see it now, and you are in denial that you were never like that, and you don't go from there and you work on it, like you never will become like a better person for your art and for your community, and you'll never get what you want out of life. You just keep holding yourself back. And so the fact that you're able to say that is like, it's amazing, because a lot of people can't do that.
Well, I mean, I guess self-reflection is an important thing. I mean, it reminds me, the whole idea, art is fun, man. You know, my friend, I have
Should
a
be,
really
yeah.
good friend named Jay Stuckey, who's an amazing LA artist also. And he has taught as an adjunct. And he said when he was an undergraduate, he had a painting teacher. He said, I don't know how he managed to do it. This is him talking about his teacher. I don't know how he managed to do it, but he somehow managed to make painting unsexy. And boy, you have to really try to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, you know. And Borges said something. He said sometimes when he would read critics, as accomplished and erudite as they were or are, he really had the feeling that he was reading the work of astronomers who had never actually bothered to look at the stars.
Wow.
And I think, I mean, he's an amazingly pithy dude. That is, in a nutshell, how I think about a lot of the way criticism is leveled.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to end the Instagram live, but we
Sure.
can continue on YouTube.
Sure.
If you want to do that.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm happy to keep going. If
No.
you-
Yeah. No, it's just no.
I,
It's
ha-
just
I haven't bored you yet.
Oh,
No,
not at
no,
all,
you're totally
no.
fine. We
Yeah.
there's a limit, there's like a cap out for an hour on Instagram Live,
Right.
and so we are gonna cut off here. If there's anybody who would like to continue to tune in, if you can go on YouTube to Happening in Downtown LA's account, it will be streaming. It's currently streaming live.
Currently
You
streaming
just
live.
catch up where you left off. So, yeah, see you
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
YouTube.
Here, let me. I'll grab it.
By the way, somebody in the comments had asked if they could come to maybe like to the critique team.
Oh,
Yes.
So is
Everyone
that
is-
something
Oh, yeah,
you're
we're-
into?
Tell
Like,
them yes.
everyone is
Yes.
invited
Everybody
to these
is.
future critiques.
Yeah, actually, you know, for future reference for Joe Biel, his podcast is
Trees _podcast.
Trees_podcast.
Yeah.
And this is where, I mean, obviously this is the start of something obviously phenomenal, and it's gonna be, and it's gonna grow and grow like a big beautiful tree to begin with.
We'll try.
But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you all check out what he's doing and his work.
Thank you.
What's your Instagram as well?
Joe Biel 20.
Joe Biel 20.
JoeBiel 20.
Yep.
Boom. All
We'll
right.
put all the info up.
And then
that's-
all
we'll
the
make
other
it
stuff is on my
accessible.
link tree, so it's easy
Yeah.
to get
All
it.
There
right.
you go. All right, guys.
All right, and we're going over to YouTube
All right.
now.
All
Happening in Downtown LA, YouTube.
All right,
Live
see you
streaming
guys.
there. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
See you on YouTube.
Right now.
So fun, man.
Yeah.
I'll say this
You're a
post on one.
fantastic teacher.
What's that?
I said somebody said you're
Aw.
a fantastic teacher.
Well,
I
that's
don't
nice.
know. It definitely, man. That's what all the things that you're saying right now. It's surprising that you were saying that you were not already giving this. Like
I think I was partially giving. it,
Yeah, because
but
I felt it, man.
Oh,
I
well,
really
that's
did.
good.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when you're being consumed by anxiety and depression, it is extremely disorienting. And so I might be being a little hard on myself,
Yeah.
and you don't really see how you're being perceived by others.
Yeah.
But anyway, but thank
Well,
you.
No, I mean I totally get it. I've had my own similar battles with.
We all do, right?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know if it's a commentary on the way that we're living. Like you said, that Western dragon kind of
Yeah.
consuming all of us. So
Well, I mean, personally, I just think life is hard, and that,
Uh-huh.
that I have a suspicion that it's always been this way throughout
Yeah.
history,
Yeah.
and that we clean up history and tend to romanticize it and kind of see it through like nostalgic positivism, which is not really real.
yeah, for sure. Interesting.
So
Yeah. All right. So we kind of we switched.
I
switched
had a
gears.
question, and then
Yeah.
and then I tuned into you,
We were
and then I
talking
forgot my
about.
question.
We were talking
That's
about.
Yeah.
Oh,
please,
okay.
Go
Yes.
ahead.
yeah,
Do you feel like those issues, like with depression and anxiety? I mean, as an artist, you're consistently being vulnerable. Like,
Yeah.
art is, I think, one of the forms that you can be the most vulnerable. So, do you feel like
Yeah.
being that consistently vulnerable has anything to do with that self-criticism? And like,
that's
That's a
actually
good
a
one.
really
Yeah,
good
that's a
question.
great
Thanks,
question.
Amy.
Yeah.
That was
I'm
Amy.
gonna say guardedly yes. But I have to say that I don't think that being an artist is actually more vulnerable than being a plumber or anything where you have to provide a service to people, actually. So I think that's a myth about art that is untrue, or at least distorted, maybe is a better word. But I do think that artists in our society, and I use the word large in a large sense, like actors, writers, are people that are paid to be vulnerable in a way that other people maybe aren't. So that maybe makes it unique. So I can really only answer for myself. Here's my self-criticism. I really don't think I think this is a fair criticism of myself. I pretended to be vulnerable and actually wasn't. That's the issue I have with my old self, you know, which I still have those tendencies, but now I'm like, okay, the more vulnerable I am, the better my work is, and the more I'm connecting with people, double, triple, quadruple win, you know. So I'm not really answering your question, but I'm kind of, yeah.
No, you are.
All right.
Oh. Wow. Thank you.
So what are your plans with your current work that you're working on? Do you want to show them in a gallery?
I know, I really do. You know, the thing is, back in like 2003 through 7 or 8, I was showing in like 5 or 6 galleries in Seattle, LA, New York, Portland, Berlin, Miami. I mean, I was on the treadmill, you know, and I wasn't at the highest level. I wasn't at the level of like the super greats, but I was kind of in the game. And I didn't handle it well, and that may be a different conversation. But anyway, but I do really want to show my work, yes.
Okay.
And I don't have gallery representation in this country at all at the moment. And I would like to. I would definitely like to show in my hometown. I think LA is one of the greatest art centers at the moment. And I'm working. I didn't bring any of this work, but I'm working on I've been working on a series of simpler drawings that I think would translate really well into neon. Actually,
Wow.
yeah, like almost. If you know Bruce Nauman's neon pieces, or there's a fantastic Northwest artist named Dan Attoe, Attoe, who they're really a beautiful figurative pieces. And anyway, I have a series of new drawings that I actually think are okay as drawings, but I think they'd be really pretty weird and poetic and beautiful as neon pieces. And I got to raise some funds to have them fabricated. But
You're talking about like light.
yes,
neon?
if you look, like Bruce Nauman made a series of famous neon pieces where they flat, they're super simple, almost like stick kind of figures with text, and they're really funny and dark and intense. And mine are kind of dark, surprisingly. But I think they would actually, ironically, do very well in the LA market. And as I say that, I don't mean that. I'm happy to think marketing, because my new self is just like, marketing is just part of being an artist to reach an audience.
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually spurs of another question. In terms of addressing marketing specifically and the business side of art, like being an artist and going to school to be in some form of art as your career, and coming out of school and not knowing a single thing about business. Like, what is that about?
It's because,
how do we get around that? Like,
well, I know how to get it. Well, no, I don't. I shouldn't say it that confidently. I have ideas on how to get around it. And I was talking with my friend Brian Canfield, who's an amazing stained glass artist, and he started his own podcast called Beholders Share.
Okay.
And I've been on there a couple times. Well, we kind of did it together. Anyway, we were talking. He also teaches, and we were talking about, at Fullerton and many schools have a professional practices class, which is well intentioned, but quite misguided.
but it's supposed to be for that purpose.
That is, but
teaching you how to.
But they don't
market
teach you
yourself.
goddamn thing. What they teach you is, this is how you do it. Sorry, oh boy, I'm getting myself into deep fucking shit.
Very passionate.
I don't care. I really don't care. Actually, is the truth. I think it's sort of like a Cliff Notes how to do it class, and we all know that you don't learn much about Hamlet if you don't read it. You might learn the plot, but it's not the plot that's interesting. It's the substance of anyway.
Yeah.
So the way to do it is to actually, like, I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to in one of my foundation classes. I'm going to make one of the assignments an actual competition for money.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I'm going to hire a juror. I'm going to say, whoever sells this piece to this juror for the most money wins, gets an A+ on the project, and everybody else gets A's. And I don't want to make anybody punished, but it's going to be that is how people are going to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
And they have to, you have to be careful how you do it. You don't want to make trauma, but I actually think that this is not a drill, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but there needs to be an official incentive, because in class, you're making things, and the end goal at that point is just so that your teacher could give you a good grade, and then it just stops there. And
and I think the rationale behind that is even legitimate. The idea that you want students to feel safe, and I get that. I think that's true, and I think that's important for some of the training period.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I grew up playing tennis since I was 5, and I played very competitively. If you do not play matches, you are not playing tennis. You might be hitting, you might be having a great time and enjoying yourself, which is what I do. I don't really like playing that much because I don't love the competition part. But that the real game, even the poetry of tennis, is the fact that you are going against somebody else and trying to beat them. And that's where the magic happens in any sport, in my opinion.
For sure.
I'm sure Alex told you that he's like in love with tennis right
Oh
now.
yeah. Oh yes.
Let's
Yeah.
go play sometime, man.
Oh dude, I would love to play.
I'll
Yeah.
any day.
He's going
Oh,
every day to play.
every day
So
we-
he's
I
like
have- where do you-
well
oh,
practiced.
oh,
Right here, like in South Pasadena, there's this park called Garfield
I'll
Park.
go there, man. I mean,
Oh,
I've been
dude.
going to a park near me, just hitting against the wall, but they don't have courts. But
Oh dude,
Oh,
come
I
on.
actually,
Yeah.
dude, I actually figured
Yeah.
out how to hit Nadal's forehand for real.
Really?
Like I literally, I'm not as good,
but
but
still.
I do actually mechanically can do it consistently.
Oh dude.
And I just
well,
figured it out 3 weeks ago.
all right. Well, let's test it.
Let's do it this
yeah.
week, man. All right.
Oh, dude, we're
we're gonna be podcasting from the park next
Oh
time.
hell yeah! Speaking of that interesting anecdote, have you ever heard of a book called The Inner Game of Tennis?
I've read it. I had to read it.
Yeah.
I read it when I was 8.
Oh really?
Well, I didn't really. My mom read it to me, but my
still.
my coach made me read it then.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, to me,
Yeah.
I came into.
I did
to
not know
segue,
what I was getting myself into right now.
But
Tennis,
again, I
he's
think.
like tennis all the time.
Oh,
And I'm
because
like, I cannot relate with you here.
Oh, sure you can.
for sure. I mean, that's why
It's the same. You do yoga.
I know.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
Well, in terms
I
of
do
like,
yoga every morning, by the way.
good.
Oh, we need to do some yoga together, guys.
I will, yes. You will laugh at my inflexibility.
Oh, well, the point
No,
of
I'm kidding. I know.
yoga is
I
to
know.
become more flexible.
No, I know. I love it.
But see, I think all these things that we're talking about, all these sports, the reason that I want to kind of circle around to what you're saying, that tennis for me improves my art and improves
Yeah.
my way of looking at it because
too.
it's a
And
way.
vice versa, by the way.
Yeah, because it's almost like not teaching kids about the marketing aspect about having a business plan is like not addressing them to play someone in tennis.
Yeah.
It's like you're just hitting against the wall.
That's right.
Right? And that's to me there needs to be that back and forth. There needs to be those failures. There needs to be that
Oh, yeah.
competition.
To be clear, I full-heartedly believe in that sentiment in terms of how tennis can relate to life.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we
I just
totally
like
know.
don't want to wake up at 6 a.m. to go play tennis.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
That's
you,
like the only
you don't have to because I'll play tennis with him.
There you
and
go.
you
There
can
you
stay
go.
in bed.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
girlfriend will probably do the same thing.
Yeah.
Well,
But-
he's got his other friend he plays with every morning is also named Alex. So
I will
you'll
play
call
every
him
morning
The
Alex.
Alexes will
The
will
Alex-
invite. will
I
come-
am serious.
Oh, dude.
But I started playing
yes.
pickleball, which is really fun too.
I used to play that back when I was a kid, and
Yeah.
I loved it.
It's-
I've never played
yeah.
pickleball.
It is really fun.
It's so much. We played it with Adam. Remember?
But it is not as good as tennis. I'm
No,
sorry.
it's
These
not.
guys are always talking shit about. I'm like, listen, guys,
Dude, you don't know.
you just don't.
Oh, there's so much like there's that court, the way
It's
they're
the
able to move.
spacing and
Exactly.
the pace.
Oh, it's
Do you like
amazing.
tennis, Amy? You're a sports,
I
sports gal.
know. I was gonna say.
Yeah.
You're throwing out names. I know like Serena Williams and like.
Oh yeah, but she just got beat.
She did.
Osaka,
Yeah.
She's my favorite.
Yeah.
She's a beast. Oh my goodness.
And she's
she
the
can.
nice. Did you? I mean, she is like she's like a guru.
I
type,
mean, she like so stoic.
beautiful person and
Yeah.
just Yeah, she's
Uh-huh.
amazing.
She actually
Yeah.
just beat Serena.
She did.
Yeah.
This is not the sports part.
Hey man.
Transition
We're
to the other
transitioning.
podcast.
I mean, David Foster Wallace would play tennis, and he wrote 2 incredibly beautiful essays about tennis
Oh.
that you guys might want to read.
I would love to read that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you about it.
Oh man, that's so funny how I even came across. Because the reason I even became interested in tennis was because I love the idea of how like momentums can shift and how like it was
Yeah.
almost like a dance in that kind of a way.
Definitely.
Yeah, and this like how that is, especially with the way that I process my art. It's
Yeah.
very because I'm working with fluid acrylic, and so
Right.
it is that kind of working with momentum.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is. I think all these, but I think that sports. I just think that everything. I mean, I think you could get a plumber in here, and we could talk about how the craft of plumbing and the business of it is an art.
Oh,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
I mean, I just think it's all the same stuff.
It is. I mean, again, if art is a very beautiful way of understanding, expressing your life and
Yeah.
maybe the beauty of life through your own individual lens, then it has to relate to everything else, right?
But it used to. See, that's the thing about art is that that's where scholarship. See, to me, sloppy scholarship is part of what made these false myths become become entrenched in the public imagination.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, the artist was just an artisan along with everybody else back in the Middle Ages. In fact, was expected to do other shit. Van Eyck was actually a diplomat for several nobles going on diplomatic missions. Holbein, aside from being an unbelievable portrait painter, was sent by Henry VIII to go paint portraits of like Anne of Cleves and Christina of Denmark to see if they were hot enough to marry. For real though. In fact, he got in serious hot water because he painted Anne of Cleves, and he was basically fucked because he didn't want to offend her and her family, so he made her a little better looking. And Henry was like, dude, you misrepresented it. I'm not into her. And Holbein was in the fucking doghouse for a while. Fortunately, not the doghouse where you lose your head.
Yeah. That's
but
so
I mean,
crazy.
that's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
Or the composer named Thomas Tallis from the Renaissance, who was he was the composer for Elizabeth the First.
Yeah.
And then also the composer, I think before that, for Mary Stuart. Mary Stuart brought back Catholicism. So Thomas Tallis is like, turn on a dime, back to Catholic hymns. All the choral music he wrote was one way. Then Elizabeth takes over. He's like,
yeah.
and the dude is just a sublimely beautiful composer. But I'm serious, man. That was not his ideas that were making him do that. That was like, I'm going to keep my head and my job.
Oh, yeah.
So the practicality of politics and quote, insidious circumstances, actually, the good artist takes that shit and makes it work for them. Like in tennis, there's the notion of like absorb and redirect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's the same thing that those guys do. So it's all the same stuff.
Oh, for sure.
To me.
For sure.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just restructured. It has a different skin. I guess
Well, that's why metaphor and allegory, I think, are conceptual forms. That's what could be taught more, rather than like critical thinking or certain type of like judgmental criticism. I don't know. I mean, I may have to write a book, although I've never liked textbooks actually. But ironically, I may have to just to get my. I don't even know what I think half the time because I can't keep track of it all.
Do you journal at all?
I definitely journal now. I mean, that in therapy, journaling is what saved me. And actually, what really saved me was making a gratitude list every morning.
Oh, yeah.
Which I seriously will not miss.
No, I mean, it's I think one of the best things to do when you wake up is just to be like to understand what it means is to be waking up alive and
That's
breathing.
right.
It's amazing. It's literally such a sublime feeling.
I'm in, brother.
Dude.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, being grateful for just waking up. I mean, I had COVID, so it was not like a super severe case, but it wasn't fun.
Oh, for sure not.
But interestingly, I'm kind of grateful to it because somehow I really faced my fear of death, and I'm not saying I have it all figured out, but I mean, I was like I was like a bad Woody Allen character. I mean, I'm like, when he said like, I'm not afraid of dying, I just don't want to be there when it happens. That was me times a million. I mean, I really think my depression very much stemmed from not being able to face mortality and all the then side little things of it. And somehow having COVID, I was by myself in this like Courtyard Marriott, finishing my therapy program, and I was just like, well, I'm by myself and I've got this thing, and it's bad, and I could feel its power, but I somehow kind of faced up to it.
Wow.
And I'm kind of grateful for it. So.
Well, it's funny how life kind of gives you exactly what you need in that moment.
And people have always said that. You read that in books, and you're like, oh man, that sounds such a kind of typical, cliched platitude. And it turns out to be true.
It's so true.
It is.
Yeah.
So shame on me for being closed-minded about stuff like that.
But I think maybe it was a necessity to be closed-minded because now it's making you understand.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about therapy that also it taught me was that people are not ready until they're ready to do it. And as a teacher, I mean, I've had the experience a million times and I have to say that even in my worst state, I'm a very patient teacher. I don't get mad at students when they don't get it.
Yeah.
I might make snide comments in my head sometimes, but they are not unkind. And I'm really willing to explain the same basic concept 1,000 times. And if they don't get it, I'll do it 1,001. And that is my duty.
Yes.
It is nothing heroic. It is my duty to give it up for those guys because that's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about being generous. And I think I wrote this in one of my posts, but I think education is a service industry. And that is the plain truth of how I see it.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, you're helping to guide someone into what they're potentially going to do for the rest of their lives.
And it should not be about me at all, except in the sense that I am a mirror or filter filter for information.
Truth.
But yeah.
Well said, sir.
Oh, thanks. I've been practicing.
You can tell. So in terms, I want to talk a little bit more about mediums too.
Sure.
So like these mediums, the medium that you used on this panel was again wash.
Acrylic wash, though.
Acrylic wash on a latex paint.
Yeah, like
paint.
and it's basically just a gessoed panel originally, you know, and I mean it's quite honestly, if you're like a really hardcore archival minded person, not a good idea. Latex is not so good, you know, and particularly if you paint acrylic over the top of it. And I don't care because I think archival stuff is you know, like my big hero is Leonardo da Vinci, who seemed to not give a shit about it at all because half the things he painted crumbled.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, people are like, you can't paint oil paint in a fresco. He's like, watch me, motherfucker. And then, of course, it falls apart. Maybe I should have listened.
Well, now we know better because
that's the Last Supper.
Yeah.
But in some ways, the ruin of it is what's beautiful about it. Whatever. It's anyhow.
I was actually talking with Patrick about that because his work he mixes his own paints with milk paste and some pigment.
Like that's casein, isn't that?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so I was asking him about longevity and like how he views, I guess, time as a kind of active.
What did he say? I didn't hear that.
We were just kind of after.
Does he care?
He doesn't care.
No.
He thinks he actually cares to a degree, but he likes the idea of having his work kind of evolve over time.
Right.
But now that he's also getting, he's getting interest from people who are spending, a good deal of money on his work. Yeah. And now he's like, it's entering the thought is entering into his head.
Well, I mean, that's really the only reason that drawings are less expensive than paintings is that paintings are thought about as permanent objects. It's like that scene in Indiana Jones in the Raiders of the Lost Ark where he's like, Indy, we take this stupid little watch and we bury it, and in 1,000 years it's worth millions. And if you think about it, it's only worth millions because of mortality.
Truth.
That's the only reason that I can think of. Yeah. Which is fine. I mean, it makes sense. But in any way, I mean, so this is not a totally unarchival. So it really is painted in a kind of egg tempera style. Egg tempera in terms of cross hatching, which I actually learned how to do that stuff from my teacher. Like mix your own paint, like take egg yolks and separate it out. And it turns out the funny thing about oil painting that everybody loves so much is that it's probably the least archival medium of paint mediums, period.
Really?
I mean, egg tempera is super, like if you go to museums, egg tempera paintings, I mean, have you ever tried to clean egg off a dried egg off a plate?
Yeah, it's
fucking
not
hard,
coming
man.
off.
It's not coming off. And that those paintings tend to keep their color fastness much more. And then the Romans used encaustic, which is wax based, and those mummy portraits, those are much more. Oil paintings, even when they're painted in a perfectly sound method, are going to yellow and crack. And there's nothing to do about it because it's not stable. It dries by a chemical process, oxidation, and it does not. So I think it's really weird or funny, ironic that oil painting is held up as the highest gold standard, but strangely it's the least archival. But it's also very beautiful if you do it right. I just not great at it. I'm not a great painter, and I'm not being self-deprecating. I am not, Joe.
There's a, I got it.
Okay.
We have a public safety alert.
It's a
elderly.
Oh man.
Oh no.
Okay.
Keep your eyes out for the elderly people.
now we know this is live. For
yeah. That was jarring.
Oh yeah.
I think God was interrupting my lofty. I was getting a little too serious.
He got a little frightened there. I saw it in his eyes. He's
man.
like, "What's going on?"
Yeah. That's, anyway, what was I saying?
Oil paint sucks.
No, I don't think it sucks. No, I was saying, I mean, like people who teach at Fullerton, like Rebecca Campbell and Jeff Forkin, are amazingly good painters.
Yeah, they know how to handle it very well.
And I'm just not that good at it, and I don't really care. I don't love painting that way. I like looking at paintings, but I don't like looking at paintings as much. I like looking at the emotional aspects more than the paint itself. And I mean, I bet you're the opposite. I bet you love paint.
I'm actually moving. Well, funny enough, I do love paint. to answer that.
No,
but
and you should.
Yeah, but I'm moving more and more towards sculpture.
Oh, that's interesting.
Working with this.
Why is that?
Just wood. I love the idea. I love one thing that I started not being able to do, that I basically had built this stand out of a tripod, and I placed my work on top of it in order to create movement, to move the paint.
Yeah.
I then kind of then I started using this extender where I just kind of was like mixing it in a cup and then pouring.
Yeah.
And I just missed the physicality of it. I missed the physicality of moving my body and of being able to to see how my body, how like my movements was actively playing a role in my art. And
That's
so
interesting.
yeah, so now I mean I'm sure you've seen some of Julia's work.
Yeah.
And what we've been kind of growing in a parallel way, so to speak, is the idea of working with wood in that kind of way.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of like the degradation of works over time, you know, and just like not being able to keep or not making work that's not archival, essentially. I don't know if you saw some of the sculpture stuff. I actually did it for like my final project at Fullerton with the stumps.
I did, yeah.
The stumps, and
I thought they were really beautiful.
My intention with those was for them to naturally degrade.
Yeah.
And so, of course, one of the first questions that Kyung asked me when I gave it to her, when I showed it to her, was like, "How are you going to preserve this?" It's like, well, the point is actually to not preserve it.
And did she accept that?
Yeah, she loved it.
Okay,
she thought
good.
it was amazing, and thank you, Kyung, for that. If you see this, but
Well, she's very open to a lot of things, which I love about her.
Yeah. But I just recently, I have two stumps. One of them I threw away actually because it was falling apart, and which rightfully so. Like that was the point of it. But I literally put it in the dumpster. It was a little one, but I have a larger one. It has redwood bark on it, and I was looking at it, and then I was like, I don't really know if I actually want to keep this here because it still has live lichen on the outside of it. And I was like, and even though I love this and I really want to keep it, it's like something that belongs in nature. And so I was like talking to somebody about taking the wheels off of it because it has wheels and literally just like putting it out like on the hiking trail, you know, and just let it do its thing.
But see, you could also do a piece where you document it every week.
Yeah.
And I mean, see that I guess so. The ironic, you know, I'm thinking about performative artists.
So it's archived, but it's not physically.
Well, the archive is the piece.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, if you want to start to think about other possibilities of if you accept that documentation can be the artwork, and that the artwork is actually not the artwork.
I don't know if I'm fully there yet. I love it so much. I'm like, I don't want to get rid of it.
Well, or you could also think about it from a quantum physics point of view, in which it's a multiverse where the artwork is the artwork, but the documentation is also artwork. It's like just another piece.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be more palatable to you.
Yeah, I'll have to. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that. I just I never saw it as something that I would sell. It was just like I wanted to make this, and I did, and I'm keeping it because I love that I made it.
Well, why wouldn't you sell it? See, that's interesting that you put that.
Well,
not trying to needle you.
No. That's totally fine. It's a valid question because, like, talking about how to archival work and how there might be an idea that people don't want to buy archival work. Like, where do you non-archival? Sorry, I'm gonna stop using that word because it's just like work that's not gonna last. Like, would you buy something like that?
I would.
So then, what would your intention be with it?
Would be to have an experience.
To have an experience
because,
with it.
I mean, you know, if you know, why do people pay to go to concerts?
That's true.
Are they permanent?
Yeah.
That's very true.
I mean, you can document it, but the document is not exactly the same.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's what memory is for. I think one of the things. I mean, aside from keeping us alive, etc. But
I guess that caters to the idea of eating food too. Like a lot of us spend a lot of money on food, and it's like, you know, it lasts.
I mean, it's
and then it does its
interesting
thing
that
on.
you mentioned that because I just started seeing somebody who I'm really into, and one of the things that we're connecting on, aside from everything else, is food. And I really like talking to her about food. And in the previous, I was not into it. And like, to me, experiences of food are, I mean, I'm like, I could let let this painting go in the dumpster, but I definitely want some tacos.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For real though, I'm not kidding. So I think that the idea of permanence is worth questioning in art school. And it's the reason that, you know, like, if you really want to piss off a class, if you just feel like kind of winding them up, talk about the John Cage piece, 4 minutes and 33 seconds, which you know that piece, I think, where John Cage, it's silence, so that the pianist comes and sits down at the piano, and it's 4 minutes and 33 seconds of watching the pianist not play. And the piece is the noise and ambient sounds, and people are like, what? That's not cool. On any number of levels. I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
And then I say, the conversation we're having right now is a piece if I say it is. Because the artist's role is to frame things, among other things.
Okay, so another good question that just came up then is how do you address then, because there is obviously a lot of criticism on just kind of the art world and people just making things and calling it art and it not really be considered art.
But it is art.
So
everything is art.
Saying that everything is art is
I
valid. I agree. I totally agree. But there's like people who look at Patrick's work, and they're like, my kindergartner can finger paint that. Like, why would I buy that?
Well, you know what I say to them? You're confusing your taste with a universal judgment, and you're being fucking stupid. That's what I would say.
More like it.
That's what I would say.
Yeah.
I might not use that word. I would say you're being ignorant and at best delusionally small-minded. You're confusing your concerns with everybody's concerns, and by the way, life is not about that.
Truth.
I guess to put it more soundly, everybody, like I always say this, everybody has their own values, like that what they have their ideas of what they value and what they want to spend their money on, and that's extremely personal.
Well, that's their right. But you might ask if somebody had that opinion about Patrick's work, and I think his work is really beautiful, by the way, personally.
For sure.
But if they express that, you might say, well, why should I care what you think? Why are you forcing your opinion on me? I didn't ask you.
That's the downfall of social media, that we see all the time. It's just like,
but
this is stupid.
I don't think that's true. I think these discussions were happening well before social media. I mean, there's a reason that Jackson Pollock was having fistfights with other people at the Cedar Bar in the 50s over, like, are you guys really fighting over that drip? Okay, man. Maybe it's also the beer, but I think it's the drip too.
You're right. I think I mean more so that somebody can go onto a picture and comment and say this is dumb or something, and it can stay there forever.
Oh, I see.
And then you
that's
see
true.
it again and again and again,
But
and it does something else to you than having a conversation and person. And
one of my favorite artists, Robert Irwin, he had
amazing.
So amazing. He had two pieces when he actually was doing actual abstract work on canvas.
Yeah, I know the pieces. I think I know
in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and they ripped, and they were so upset with it, they ripped it apart.
I mean, Stravinsky's famous piece, "The Rite of Spring," that he wrote in I can't remember, but in early teens, caused a riot.
Wow.
In the theater. And now you listen to it, and it is still a very, very, it's shocking in a certain way. It's very visceral. But I'm like,
riot.
A riot.
Wow.
And like, it's the same kind of thing that people do about prices of bread, which I do understand having a riot for.
Yeah.
But I'm like, really, guys?
I would love to be in a place where somebody releases a piece of art in some form,
where it's
and
that
people are uproar.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, it happened. It happened in New York when Giuliani censored the Young British Artists exhibition back in the late 90s.
Huh? Why did I didn't hear about that.
Because he thought they were obscene.
Oh, I think I actually did hear about that. Yeah.
There's a famous photograph by Andre Serrano called Piss Christ, which is like he dipped a sculpture of a crucifix in urine and photographed it. And it's beautiful. It's like if you didn't know it was urine, you wouldn't even know. But just that concept, I mean, Giuliani's obviously a Catholic, and obviously we know he's a fucking lunatic now. But, and you guys can write in and be mad if you want. I don't care. But I mean, that caused the equivalent of a riot. I mean, museums were shut down over that show.
That's crazy.
One actually went to jail. Not really, but kind of symbolically, because they wouldn't close the show.
Wow.
So it does happen. All the time.
We were the infants when that was happening, pretty much, and so I cannot think of like a situation during my time where I was like consciously aware of like this happening and like witnessing it.
I can tell you one. The artist Dana Schutz did a painting. Rebecca talks about her. She's an amazing contemporary painter. You can look her
through
up.
so many painters
That's okay.
and like
it's okay.
artists during that
but
time.
Anyway,
did any of them stick?
Not in the last Whitney biennial, but the one before it, which I saw. I saw this painting. She did a painting of who's the guy who got the black kid who was murdered. No.
Was this way before Emmett?
Emmett Till.
Yeah, Emmett Till. Yeah.
Okay, so there was a famous photograph of Emmett Till beaten to a pulp. I mean, it is a really horrendous photograph. It's hard to look at. She did a painting of it, like in a kind of Danish Schutz style, a really interesting painting, and hung it in the Whitney Biennial, and she got a shitstorm from a lot of black community leaders saying you have no right to take culturally appropriate our image and make a statement of any kind. You're a white girl and you should be listening, not, you don't have the right. And, I think she was very well intentioned, and she, to her credit, listened and, said, I'm never going to sell this painting. But that was a shitstorm, man. And I remember it because that was in I was just in the middle of my depression. That was like 2017 or 18.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty recently.
Yeah. Huh.
So, I mean, seriously, this stuff is happening all around. It's just, I think it's harder to track it because of the glut of information.
Oh, yeah.
It's really hard to kind of separate it out.
Overwhelming.
But it does happen.
Yeah. No, I believe it. I guess I haven't had a personal experience with it.
Yeah.
I just imagine myself being in like an old theater, and somebody plays a song. And
like
the
someone,
whole theater's like,
like people are fainting. Somehow vegetables get like passed around, and people are throwing them at the stage or something.
Yeah. Well, I just figure that when I have my critique class, I'm just going to hand out bananas and like rotten apples. So let's just be honest about it. You guys are going to get mad soon. So here you go.
There you go. I prepared you well.
We'll just all wear garbage bags.
We're definitely more desensitized now, though, than people were before. I think to this stuff. I think maybe that's.
Well, I think.
So much
Like if you think about the Trump presidency, I mean, it's like it's kind of hard to outdo that. I mean, it's right. I mean, or just the the absurdity that how people act badly out there. I don't know.
Yeah. But I think the cool thing about all that work, despite the actually the good thing about that work was the visceral reaction. I think it got you to have a feeling, right?
I mean, well, that's what Kafka said. He's like, a great. I mean, he was talking about writing, but you could take it to, the purpose of a book is to it's to be an axe that chops the frozen sea within us. I mean, and chopping is not going to feel good. I mean, this tattoo hurt like hell, and that was I paid for that.
Yeah.
So imagine if somebody's like, trying to needle you.
You're like crying. You're like, this is worth it.
Like, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. That's a discomfort thing. But on the other hand, I also think there's something to be said for soothing work, potentially. And I mean, I think every artist has different artists have different purposes. And I think that quote feel good work, that's super calming and maybe to the point of being dull for some people is equally necessary. And I really don't think there's bad art. And I mean, I did a post about that and got into this hilarious.
I read it. I saw it, and I actively read the.
Yeah,
whole
I mean,
thing,
these
and
guys
I was
were
like,
pissed.
Oh,
No, and I really hope they're listening. I'm sure they're not because they're in Manchester, England, but they're fucking idiots. However, their opinion is valid too, but they just can't handle the idea that. I think I said the post was there is no bad art, only poor viewers, and I probably could have said poor artists, bad artists, because it would have been more parallel structure. But whatever, you get the idea.
Yeah.
And I truly think I believe that now, which doesn't mean I like everything. I actually don't like everything, but it doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's the thing to me is like confusing your taste with a universal judgment does not make sense to me anymore, and it used to. It really did. So I feel like I'm doing penance for my past. I mean, I kind of feel like I really am. Like I think I spread that gospel unintentionally or not with my students, and was kind of building an elitist structure that I don't think is helpful.
Sounds like you need to start your own university.
I
think you're on that. It sounds like you're on the way to starting your own university.
The truth is, I don't believe in institutions, so I don't want to have a university.
So we have to change the idea of what a university
well,
is, and that's what Joe Biel's going to do.
Okay. Well, Julia, you can help me focus these ideas.
All right.
Because I don't quite. Whoops, I can't quite see it, but it's okay. Yeah.
All right.
Wow. No, I mean, I think with anything that we do, it's all leading to something, right? And that's the cool thing about not knowing, right?
Well, I mean, even with my channel and maybe with your guys' channel, like I realized when I started it that I just was like, I am going to start it and I don't want to know what I'm doing.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't want to know the end game. I don't want to plan it out like the traditional do a business model and all. I mean, I understand why restaurants have to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm not a restaurant. I'm not actually trying to make money. I wouldn't mind getting rich on YouTube and quit my job in 5 years. I would love to do that,
Yeah.
but that is not why I'm doing it. And I'm not, and I don't care if I have 3 followers. I'm going to be treated the same as if I have 3 million.
Yeah.
And maybe I will not be able to do that, but I would like to. It's my goal.
That's
One of
good.
my-
I think that's how every artist should view their craft.
I
right?
think
If
I
they're
think the
interested in.
one-to-one connection, if that is lost, it's over. Whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah. That's why we're here.
I know. That's why. That's
We're
why.
maintaining connection, and
I
it's-
know. That's why
it
I'm
was-
here with you.
It was at risk for
Yeah.
for a while there.
But
This
it's
whole
really
past
actually.
year.
I mean, dude, it's so fun to like. Just this is a great conversation. I mean, I'm not
Oh,
saying
without
that
doubt.
arrogantly, but it really is. It feels real, and I'm sure there's somebody out there who can relate to it because if you're real, art is just not rocket science. It's like if I make a mark on that wall, it doesn't matter if I'm good or not good or skilled or not skilled. Somebody will respond to it,
Yeah.
and it will feel something.
Oh,
Yeah.
And that's
without
just a
doubt.
fact, man.
Yeah.
I think that's a fact.
Oh, for sure. It's like, have you ever seen those photos of someone like who lays like a glove like in a gallery
Yes.
space,
Yeah.
and people
Or
start
glasses
thinking
or
that's
something.
that's like it's some sort of piece, right?
And often that's portrayed in kind of like this smart-assy. Well,
Yeah.
that's why the art world is bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
But the truth is, you know, it reminds me of a really good story about that Robert Rauschenberg tells. Because Marcel Duchamp, he loved Marcel Duchamp. Literally, I think. Actually, I think he literally loved him and had a
He was
crush on him.
in love with
Yeah,
him.
but saying that's another story. But he talks about how Marcel Duchamp was known for being this very curmudgeonly, like anti-object. The ready-made, his whole thing. And Robert, so he did a famous sculpture with a bicycle wheel stuck in a stool, and it was kind of an anti-fine art statement, according to Duchamp, I guess. And Rauschenberg said he never understood the idea that was an anti-statement of any kind. And I think Rauschenberg is not bullshitting. He's just being sincere. He's like, I just thought it was a beautiful piece of sculpture along with Michelangelo.
Yeah.
And it's just part of a continuum. And if you think about it, it's really cool that he said that, and the fact that despite Duchamp's intentions, which I don't doubt and are legit, Rauschenberg was like, I don't care what he said and what he thought. I think it's beautiful.
Oh yeah.
And so, like, to me, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's quite simple.
Yeah.
So all this noodling about theory and, like, who cares? I can honestly say, and I know this is a bad thing to say, but I will probably never read another piece of theory in my life. I would much rather read a book about cooking or gardening because it's much more life affirming.
Yeah. That's very true.
It's much more. It brings
I've
you
done a lot of
grounded. It
cooking
grounds
right-
you into
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, I used to be the same way. Like I used to love to read about different types of philosophy and theory that got me going. But then I realized that all those like very airy kind of books were kind of aside from the point of what's really real, and that's like connection and relationships.
Although
and,
I do think that some philosophy is art. Like I
Oh,
think
for
that,
sure.
I mean, like Descartes, like the great philosophers.
yeah.
Their works to me are the same as a great drawing or painting.
Oh yes.
They're basically revealing their point of view.
yes.
It's like poetry,
Yes.
really, to me. But anyway, but I know what you mean.
No, definitely. I mean, like I guess the way that I structure it is I've been listening to a bunch of lectures on YouTube about applying those philosophies into everyday life and
Right.
making them practical,
Oh,
and then how
that's
you
interesting.
begin to realize that life is that art form,
Right.
And it's there, and
That's
it's
interesting.
and becomes, like you said, it becomes poetic in that kind of way.
Yeah.
You know, so
Well, I mean, I think anytime you can connect your real experience to that. I mean, there's a really beautiful book of essays by Jeanette Winterson, who's a fiction writer. It's called Art Objects. And I don't remember the name of the essay, but one of the essays describes how she, admittedly, never gave a shit about visual art. Like, for some reason, it just didn't move her. And she talks about how she was walking in London by a gallery just by chance. It's like a really weird chance. She just happens to look to the right as she's passing by the doorway, open doorway of a gallery, and there's a painting that she just catches a quick glimpse of. And somehow, the next thing she knows, she's in the gallery because it just drew her in. And then she talks about how she literally became obsessed with painting because there was something about that painting that just sucked her in like
Wow.
a siren from the
Uh-huh.
Odyssey.
Yeah.
And that she then started becoming like a painting groupie, but knowing nothing about it, like never ever looked at it before,
Yeah.
let alone read about it.
Uh-huh.
And that she became quite, expert about like painting very quickly. And I think that's and I don't remember how the essay ends, but it's a really cool essay I haven't given it to students, but if I ever do teach the crit class, I will, because it talks about what you're talking about, where you take this thing that is supposedly this elitist niche thing. For her, she didn't even know what a painting was. She just saw this thing, and it called to her like a cat that's lost or something. And I just think that's that's really how it works.
Yeah,
That's why we make art. I mean, that's why anyone makes
you're
art.
right.
Yeah.
It only takes one thing that you make, just putting a little bit of putting a little bit of color on a canvas can change somebody's life big time.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I forgot his name again.
Patrick.
I'm so bad at names.
That's okay.
But Patrick I really enjoyed a lot of the things he had to say about painting and about not needing to know anything. I can't remember I had to go back and read it or watch it again, but he was very eloquent and real about you don't need to know anything, just do it.
Yeah.
So it really is kind of simple like that.
I mean, I feel like in such especially today, like that's like the tonic that we all need. It's like everything's so complex that we just need things and platforms and ways to connect that are simple.
Well, the idea that painting is dead, or how many times has it been pronounced dead? It's like it's like a rerun already. And it's like nothing's dead or nothing's alive if you want to think of it. It's always resurrectable.
Yeah,
if anybody wants to make it.
Everything. It's like how you said about the ideas and concepts are tools, right? They're there for you to pick up.
That's right.
And if you're ready to pick it up, it's your time, and you're gonna breathe your own life into that thing.
Well, I think the idea of that, groups make pronouncements that, it's just like sports again. It's like the Angels hate the Dodgers, and will come up with like so many reasons that sound good to them. Yeah. But for somebody who's not a sports fan, you're like, you really don't like the Dodgers because their pitcher did this? That's the reason you hate them? Because what about the other 23 guys on the team? So it's like if you're in the club, you will always find like-minded people to come up with irrational reasons to think the way you do, which is fine. But don't push it on me, man.
Oh, definitely not.
That's how I think about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
I think that's a good place
We're
to
tapped
end.
out, and if you're not tapped out, I gotta go pee soon. So
we got.
That's a good time to end, right?
Yes, it's a good time to end. The moral of this story is if you want to make art, just make it. Make what you want. It's gonna help you. It's gonna help somebody else.
And you can come to my crit class and show it.
You could come to Joe Biel's crit class and show it. There's a lot of good
Shameless
resources.
plug there.
Yeah. There's a lot of good resources out there for people who are interested in trying something new.
Sure.
Don't lose connection with people that you love already, and find new connection with people who might be able to offer you something that you've always wanted to learn. Cross mediums, collaborate with people. There's so many cool things that we could be doing right now as artists, and that's why we're here having this conversation. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys.
Giving
It was
us
my pleasure.
spiel.
My honor to be here, really.
No, it's our honor to be able to hear so much knowledge, so much wisdom, to laugh. I feel like we've been through a whole journey.
The laughing is important.
Oh, for sure.
I think the laughing is just because I'm really tired, because we spent a lot of time on the art show.
You mean it's not because of my brilliant, erudite sense of humor? I'm
Nice.
offended. I'm deeply offended.
The ego is inflated over here.
Thank
No, of course. This was very nice. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you to I always say wrong, 1001 Wilshire for hosting us, and for Happening Studios for broadcasting us. And we'll be back next week, Friday night at 7 p.m. We have yet to confirm the guest, but there will be a guest of many.
We promise.
It'll just me again in a car. I'm here, and I will basically say everything opposite.
Yeah.
We'll have
That Joe Biel, what an asshole.
So if all else fails, we'll have alternate Joe Biel on.
Performance.
But thank you guys again, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.